The shirt had been sitting in the laundry basket for 3 weeks. She knew because she'd been counting. Not intentionally. Just every time she walked past the basket, every time she noticed the blue fabric buried underneath towels and t-shirts, every time she thought, he'll ask about it eventually. He always used to. But 3 weeks passed, and he never mentioned it once. Not at breakfast, not before work, not while folding laundry, not before bed, nothing. The strange part wasn't the shirt. The strange part was that he seemed completely fine without it. So one Saturday afternoon while he was out grocery shopping, she pulled it from the basket, and that's when she noticed the button. It didn't match the others. Same size, almost the same color, but not quite. She turned the shirt over, looked at the stitching, and immediately knew someone had sewn it back on, carefully, recently enough to still hold, long enough that it wasn't new. For a moment, she assumed she'd forgotten doing it herself. Then she tried to remember, and couldn't. The realization arrived slowly, not because it was complicated, because it was simple. He had done it, alone. Years ago, he would have asked, not because he couldn't sew, because he never bothered learning. Whenever a button fell off, he'd leave the shirt somewhere obvious. The kitchen counter, the dining chair, the end of the bed. Eventually she'd find it, fix it, return it, and life would continue. Neither of them ever thought much about those moments, until now. Because now she couldn't stop thinking about one question. If he had fixed the button himself, what else had he stopped bringing to her? She sat on the edge of the bed holding the shirt, trying to remember the last time he'd asked her for something small, not help with bills, not schedules, not groceries. Something personal, something unnecessary, something that quietly said, I need you. She couldn't remember, and the harder she tried, the worse it felt. Across the room, he was brushing his teeth. The sound echoed faintly through the apartment. She found herself wondering how many things he'd handled alone recently. How many moments she never knew happened. How many stories had become private. Not because he was hiding them, because he no longer thought to share them. The button wasn't proof that he had changed. People change. That was normal. The button was proof that something else had changed first. At some point, he stopped asking, and at some point, she stopped noticing. She looked down at the stitching again, trying to remember the last small favor, the last loose button, the last tiny inconvenience he brought to her, the last moment he assumed she would care about something only because it mattered to him. She couldn't remember that either, and what frightened her wasn't the answer. It was the possibility that there had already been a last time, a last button, a last favor, a last small problem, and neither of them noticed when it happened. That night, they climbed into bed. The apartment settled into silence. The shirt still hung over the chair. The button still didn't match. I love you, she said. I love you too. The answer came immediately. Warm, familiar, honest. She believed him. That wasn't the problem. Lying awake beside him, she kept thinking about the button. Not because it had been sewn back on, because it had quietly marked something she couldn't see when it happened. The button wasn't the first thing he'd fixed alone. It was simply the first thing she noticed. The shirt remained where she left it, quietly hanging between their sides of the room.